So reach, why reach? You've heard a little bit from the video, and you're going to hear some more about why we're moving forward with this campaign. Part of it has to do with our structure here, and you'll hear about that. Part of it has to do with making our church more accessible, and some of those things we've already done. So I'm going to take you through Renew, Enhance, Access Our Church Home, some of the things that our church has already done. And as God's grace reaches us more and more people, there will be thanksgiving, and God will receive more and more glory. So we are a church rooted in grace. Some of the projects that have been completed, we have a brand new sign out there that came out for our 150th. There's a new floor, it's a couple years old, in the choir, in the fellowship room. New floor completely downstairs, and that's been a real blessing. And we've got air conditioning in this space. So these are some of the things that have already happened. But Chris, I'm going to invite Chris Connor. Chris is a member of our trustees. Chris and Bill have been very instrumental. Bill Gessner have been very instrumental in helping to move forward with the plans for the rest of this.
Back in 1922, the church decided to construct what we now call the choir loft, section of the sanctuary here. While constructing the choir loft, a portion of the church's existing roof and ceiling framing was removed. The problem we have is the rafters and ceiling joists were cut to make way for new framing that were not properly reconnected. I'm sure many of you have had construction done in your house, and as typical of most construction onto an existing structure, requires some deconstruction of the existing elements. In this case, several roof rafters, ceiling joists, and other cross supports were cut. Some were sistered and sliced. Some were never reattached or knitted back into the new addition's framing. This failure to fully reattach these structural members left the existing framing of the roof and ceiling assembly compromised and vulnerable to unbalanced loads of the framing that support the roof and the ceiling. This has caused the upper portion of the north wall of the choir loft behind Cindy's lectern to begin to shift because the structure above was not secured. You can see this wall right here, if you stand directly in line, you can see it shifted out about 2.5 inches, which means the outward pressures, because everything's not fully attached above, there are outward pressures pushing that wall out. Now, luckily, when we decided to put central air conditioning into the attic, Billy Gessner, when he was putting his trunk lines and so forth in, discovered that many of these members had been cut and compromised. The problem of insufficient overhead support extends to the ceiling in the sanctuary, where the excessive weight of the ceiling construction, which is comprised of old ceiling slots, then ceiling tiles. Later they added sheetrock to the ceiling. So if you take a look at this center area here, which this isn't a beam, this is just, for aesthetic purposes, but there's like a 3.5 to 4 inch deflection in the center, which means the added weight of the finishes, the sheetrock, the slats, and the tiles are pushing down. And this whole situation is because the ceiling members above were not properly attached. And you can also see, you can see the seams in the roof and in the ceiling. You can see the cracking, the settlement, and this is all due to the downward deflection. Let's see here. To correct these issues, we hired an engineer who brought us a couple of options for repair. The trustees felt it was very important to maintain the existing ceiling lines and overall architectural look of the sanctuary's interior. We could have put a center column right here and it would have basically solved the problem, but we want to try and conceal the improvements. So what we basically agreed with our engineer, whose name is Brian Clark, he's a local guy, is we are going to be putting 2 A-frames. Okay? These A-frames are going to run down parallel to the 2 outward walls above the ceiling line, and they're going to attach to a piece of steel which is already along the back of the sanctuary. So basically what he's doing is he's building a skeleton above the roof line, and these steel members will tie into the existing ceiling of the choir loft, as well as lend additional support of the ceiling throughout the sanctuary. sanctuary. It should be noted that these steel members will be concealed from view because we will have columns on this wall, on that wall, and in the back. And like I said, the skeleton will basically go up above the roof line, and this is going to require a lot of work, all right? It's not going to be, the work is very involved and will be expensive. It will involve a lot of delicate yet invasive work activity in the sanctuary, and we will likely be restricted from using the sanctuary for several months to accommodate the work. Not only will the work make the sanctuary safe for our members, but will also extend the serviceable life of the sanctuary's physical structure for many years to come. The estimated budget for the sanctuary is $242,000. This is a plus or minus number because you just don't know until you put something out for bid. But we put together some estimates based on Billy's experience, my experience, and many other people's on the board of trustees. Demolition is going to require, like I said, it's going to be fussy work. We're going to have to hire a carpenter to come in and disassemble the area in front of the columns, and then we're going to have to go down. We're going to have to dig. We're going to have to pour. We're going to have to put in the excavation and installation of piers and piles to support the columns. Then, of course, we'll have to put the steel work in. The steel work could run anywhere from 30 to 50 or 60,000. We're just not sure. Bill has gotten an estimate from someone, and we believe it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40,000. We're going, of course, we have to reframe the roof and the roof and the ceiling framing, insulation. You have drop ceilings, the AC rework, and the electrical lighting. What we're going to do is we're going to remove all the ceiling in the main section, in the main sanctuary, and we will be putting in a new drop ceiling. That'll eliminate probably half the weight of the existing ceiling finishes, and that'll be a fairly large endeavor as well. Of course, we have electrical and lighting that we'll be able to put back as well. So the total numbers, can vary, but we generally feel it's going to cost about $250,000. So while you can't visually see what's happening above, this is a very important fix. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we could have more shifting and the sanctuary could become unsafe. So we want to get this done in the next year, both projects, but this one being really critical to the long-term life of the sanctuary itself. Then we have the ADA entrance. The ADA is the American with Disabilities Act. It was a federal statute put into law in the 1980s, and it basically mandates that every public building has to have reasonable access for handicapped and disabled persons who need to get into the building. The accessible entrance will add a new attractive entrance to our church that will be fully accessible to anyone with a disability, whether it's a cane, a walker, or a wheelchair. This is a long time coming and has been among the trustees' long-term goals for several years now. The addition will include a ramp with side rails leading to a new landing, an all-new vestibule area, and a fully accessible unisex bathroom. The interior of the bathroom will contain one ADA-compliant stall while providing the required full turning radiuses for the wheelchairs. The bathrooms have required an upgrade for many years. I think Bob Anchik and I painted this whole area of the bathrooms 20 years ago in like 1996. And I think the paint is probably the only thing that's holding that area together. But we just keep adding more layers to it, like many of us do at our own homes. Based on the usage, the trustees decided to save considerable amount of money by going with one unisex bathroom. Bathrooms are very, very expensive to put in, especially when they're ADA compliant. This allows us to get, I believe it's like an 8x7 fully compatible bathroom, and the plumbing in this area over here for the two bathrooms is very old. The supply lines are fed from the actual parsonage, so it's a long time coming as well. We'll have new baseboard radiation heat in there. The estimated budget for this is what do we have? It was $155,000. Again, these are plus or minus numbers. We have full plans for that as well that were just given it to us last week, and we plan to file them with the building department. They're complete. We will likely have to hire an architect to come up with some finished details for the sanctuary work, but we have the structural engineering is done. We have stamped and signed plans from Brian. We just need to determine how much detail the building department will want when we actually file the applications for the building permits. The trustees believe, obviously, that this work is very, very important. And then what we have, John, we have the driveway and sidewalk. To supplement the ADA entrance, we plan to reconfigure the driveway and sidewalks and add 3 parking spaces. We think we can add 3 if we put them diagonally, but we're gonna widen the driveway. We're gonna shrink down the size of the sidewalk to a 4 or 5 foot sidewalk. We don't need it, right now it's like 6 feet and it's falling apart. We're gonna put all new sidewalks and curbs in there, and then we're gonna cut into the berm closest to the parsonage, and we'll be able to fit 2 or 3 parking spaces in there for you know, our disabled folks. Parking is very tough out here. The turning radiuses getting in and out here are tough, so we think that if we cut into that hill a little bit, we should be able to get 3 spots out of it. I think we have the estimate for that is, I think it's $37,000. Again, that's plus or minus whether we cut the hill back and just put, you know, just kind of taper the grade back, or whether we put a small retaining wall in there. It's really a matter of, we'll have to do some value engineering at the end when we get the prices in and figure out what we can cut out, what we can include. The trustees and the Capital Campaign Committee, we ask for your support, we ask for your prayers, and we're asking for pledges of money to keep our church safe and accessible for many years to come. This is a summary of all the costs. Comes up to over 450, I think it's 464. So I'll hand it off to Bob Anchik, who is our financial man.
You know, we've been talking about this for over a year. I hope by now you have a better understanding of what needs to be done and how extensive the work will be. Although I think Chris didn't mention it, to get the steel in here, they're going to have to cut open the roof. So it's quite a project. And so now, the big question is, how are we going to pay for it? Well, we started to pay for it as part of the 150th celebration. We raised $62,000, and as of today, with a couple of recent donations, it's up over $63,000. But now we'll have to do it the same way church members for generations have, by taking out a loan and pledging to give money to pay it off. Now, they did it for us in 1956 to build the education building, in 1991 to put an addition on the parsonage for our new pastor and his family. We're also going to be looking at some grants. Global Ministries offers one of $500. The Christopher and Diana Reeve Foundation has one for up to $25,000. Not that we have any of them yet, but we're hoping to apply for them. Some companies offer matching funds for charitable organizations and nonprofits. If you could check with, if your company does that, if you could check with that company and let Amy Andrews know about it. The same if you're aware of some other group that might give us a grant to complete these projects. Again, please let Amy Andrews know. In addition to this, we'll be doing fundraisers along the way. The United Methodist Development Fund offers a 20-year loan for renovation projects at a 4.5 basically fixed rate of interest. I checked with a bank in town, and the best they could do was 4.9 rate of interest for 5 years, and then after that, it's a variable rate. And I think if it follows the way it's happened in the past, that variable rate doesn't go down. It usually goes up. So if we can, we're better off with the fixed rate from the development fund. And the $400,000 loan would require monthly payments of $2,600. Of course, we hope to be able to pay it off sooner so we could save money on those interest payments. But right now, your church needs you to make an initial 3-year commitment, starting this June, to help us pay for this loan. This commitment should be in addition to your regular pledge and offering. please do not reduce your regular giving, because that is still needed to help us pay our current expenses. So the big question is, will you do it for current and future generations as past generations have done it for us? If anybody didn't get an envelope when they came in, we do have some extras back there. If you have any adult children who have now completed school and are out there in the workforce, we could give you an envelope for them also. As the pastor has mentioned, the envelope has more information on what you just saw, has a pledge card. So please take it home, review it, think about it, pray about it, then make out your capital campaign pledge card. And please return it next Sunday during the worship service, because it's actually your ticket to get into the luncheon. Do you have any questions on the projects or on the capital campaign?
At this point, we've asked the leaders of our trustees and also our capital campaign team to give their pledges early so that we have an idea of where we're starting from. And so from 8 or 9 giving units, the way that Rich words this, from 9 different families, at this point, 42,560 has been pledged. And so we are on our way, and prayerful that you will be able to do what you're able to do at this point. It's sacrificial giving, but all of our sacrificial giving isn't equal. We all can sacrifice at some level. So whatever you're able to give would be wonderful as we move forward. So are there any questions before we take a vote? The ADA, so the way that it will be configured is the entrance will actually come in, comprising part of where the women's room is right now. It will open up that space, so we'll have a lot more space out there, and the accessibility bathroom will be against the wall running towards where the men's room is. So it'll run the length instead of push back.
On the right side as you enter.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Yes.
ADA, yeah. A lot of churches have chosen this route because it's really, really hard to get to, but we do have other bathrooms in the church. So if you don't need the accessibility, I encourage you to use other bathrooms.
Okay, so now,
Are there any other questions?
one?
We have we set up a Pearl River GoFundMe page, and so if Johnny can direct you to that, we don't want the church to donate through that because there's some money that gets taken out of GoFundMe. But if you want to reach out to your family and friends that might be able to support, please direct them toward that. That would be great.
Yes. I'm sorry? I didn't hear.
So our goal is to start after Easter of 2017. All likelihood it's going to go through the summer. So it'll be several months, and I know that it won't be, it will be different. But sometimes we go through, experiences that aren't, we want to be in this space, but we want to be in a space that's safe. And so, it's going to be several months.
If you have any other questions, we'll be available during coffee time. Please come up and ask away. Thank you.
So you've been given a REACH special conference resolution, and I'm going to read it for you, and then we're going to take a vote together on this. Whereas the members of the Pearl River United Methodist Church have, throughout its 150-year history, recognized and responded to the needs to either expand or improve our facilities to be the hands and feet of God in our community, and whereas the need has arisen to address certain deficiencies in the structure of the sanctuary and the accessibility of the building, And whereas the trustees and the REACH Capital Campaign Committee have extensively done the due diligence needed to rectify these areas of concern, now, therefore, we hereby affirm the building and financial plans presented and will support the REACH Capital Campaign with our prayers, our financial and spiritual gifts, our time, our service, and our witness. And it is therefore further resolved that the trustees of the Pearl River United Methodist Church are hereby authorized and empowered to borrow money from the United Methodist Development Fund not in excess of $400,000 for the purpose of structural repair in the sanctuary, ADA ramp, bathroom, accessible driveway, and sidewalks. It's a long question, a long statement, but if you are ready and able to affirm that, would you raise your hand and say aye? Aye. Those opposed? Abstaining? Wonderful. So this is what we ask of you. Would you take, and I said this on the video, this is not, I know that it's about money, but it's more than just about money. What we're saying is that we will be a facility that will be able to have future generations gather to worship together. And future generations who maybe have not been able to come into our facility because of the stairs and ways that they're not able to be accessible, have not found their space in this community. We are making a statement of faith about the future. So would you pray daily this next week? Lord, what is it that you are calling me to do? And I want to invite you as you come back next week. I have no doubt that God has great plans for the future of this community. But it's our turn. And it's our turn to ensure that future generations will have a safe place to grow in faith, to be rooted in grace. Rooted goes first. Rooted in grace, growing in faith, and that we might continue to reach out with God's love.